When we were taking the family photo, my daughter hugged my wife and said to me, "I don't want to stand next to you. I want to be with Uncle Ethan. I don't want you. Go away." When we got the print of that family photo, my wife was standing right next to Ethan, holding my daughter in her arms. They looked like the perfect, happy family of three. The next day, when I handed the divorce papers to Emily, she frowned, confused. "You're filing for divorce over something as petty as a photograph?" I stared at her and said seriously, "Yes, over exactly that." On the day of the divorce, both Emily and I were calm. "The company equity is all yours," I said. "In return, all our stocks, options, and cash are mine. The 3 apartments in Manhattan go to you, the villa in Los Angeles is mine, and the 2 manors in the UK are mine. We'll split the castle and the French vineyard 50-50. Our marital assets were substantial, but for the Carter and Lowell families it was nothing, so the division was settled quickly. The only slight delay was over the issue of our child's custody. Sophie was only 5, but she was a sharp kid. She ran over and hugged Emily, shouting, "I want to be with Mommy." She shot a wary glance back at me, her eyes filled with suspicion, as if she was afraid I'd try to snatch her away. I couldn't help but smile bitterly. She wasn't looking at me like I was her father, but like I was some despicable kidnapper. Emily, probably assuming I would fight for custody, glanced at me and said, "Sophie will stay with me. We'll change her last name to Lowell. The Lowells can give her a better upbringing. Besides, you heard her. She doesn't want to be with you. And don't worry, Ethan is your own brother and Sophie's uncle. He'll take good care of her in the future. If you insist on fighting me for her." I cut her off calmly. "Who said I was going to fight for custody of Sophie?" Emily froze. Even Sophie looked stunned. After a moment, Emily's expression changed, her voice laced with suspicion. "Sophie is your own daughter, and you're not going to fight for custody?" I glanced at Sophie. She was wearing a Chanel Kids outfit. I recognized it. Ethan had bought it for her. Cost thousands of dollars. It certainly suited her high society princess vibe better than the clothes I bought for her. She was looking at me now in disbelief, as if she couldn't imagine I would actually give her up. "I don't want her," I said flatly. "Don't worry, I'm voluntarily giving up my rights. I won't fight you for her ever again." After the divorce, I quickly moved out of our house and into a small apartment. I had bought this small apartment myself, with money I'd saved up from my design work over the years, not with Carter family money. It wasn't big, just a little over 1,000 square feet, nothing compared to the 5,000 square foot penthouse with a panoramic view of the city skyline we used to live in. But I felt a sense of relief I had never known before. I thought getting a divorce would feel like tearing flesh from my body, but it was actually more like taking off a heavy set of chains. I knew that in Emily's eyes, ours was just a loveless business arrangement, but she didn't know that I was truly in love with her. I had a secret crush on her long before the Carter family found me and brought me back into their lives. I still remember my first day of freshman year. I'd arrived on an old train, lugging 2 giant, cheap duffel bags. Exhausted from the long journey, I tripped and fell while walking up a flight of stairs. Everyone else just snickered at me, keeping their distance. Only Emily walked over and held out her hand. "Are you okay?" It's strange. The 5 years of our marriage are a blur in my memory now, but I can still clearly picture her that day. The girl in the white shirt, backlit by the sun, bent down toward me. The wind lifted her long, dark hair, revealing a face as delicate and beautiful as a classical painting. In that moment, the summer light cast a golden halo around her. The noise and the chirping of cicadas all faded away, and all I could hear was my own heart pounding in my chest. Thinking back on what happened next feels like a teenage daydream. She glanced at my scraped knee, asked someone to watch my luggage, and helped me to the campus health services. I still remember the light scent of gardenias as I leaned on her, which made me shrink back in self-consciousness. I was afraid she would notice the stale smell on me from sitting on a train for a day and a night. By the time I came to my senses and wanted to ask who she was, Emily was already gone. I only learned her name later on the campus crush page. On the very first day of the school year, she had been featured 7 times. A classmate told me she was a junior finance major, the heiress to the Lowell family fortune, a true golden girl. Her boyfriend was Ethan from the prominent Ito family, also a finance major and the campus heartthrob. Rumor had it they were already engaged and would get married after graduation. I knew perfectly well that Emily and I were from different worlds, and I never dared to even think about getting close to her. For 4 years of college, I just watched her from a distance. I thought that, with time, this crush would eventually fade away. Until my senior year when the Carter family found me. I remember that day. I was wearing a faded cotton t-shirt, excitedly telling my adoptive mom that I'd gotten a job through a campus job fair and could start right after graduation. I'd be making $3,000 a month during my probation period. And once I saved enough money, she could finally have her surgery. Then a black sedan pulled up in front of me, and a woman in a black suit respectfully asked me to get in the car. I watched in terror as the car drove up a winding mountain road and stopped in front of a luxurious hillside mansion. My mother tearfully hugged me, telling me I was the Carters' real son. Ethan was just the baby they had accidentally taken home from the hospital. Now they had found me and we would be a family. I was in a daze for days, convinced I was in a dream. I never thought something like this would actually happen to me. It wasn't until later that I found out the real reason. 6 months earlier, Ethan had suffered a severe head injury in a car accident and was in a vegetative state. The doctors said it was highly unlikely he would ever wake up. The blood transfusion after the accident had revealed his blood type, and that's how the Carters discovered he wasn't their biological son. My parents rushed to find me so I could take Ethan's place and continue the alliance with Emily and the Lowell family. The Carter family business was already deeply intertwined with the Lowells. With Ethan unlikely to ever recover, they needed another child to secure their tie to Emily. I did love Emily, but I didn't want to be with her this way, so I refused. My mom begged me, crying, "Ben, this is the business your father and I have built over so many years. Can you really bear to watch the Carter family go bankrupt? Can you bear to see me, at my age, go out and work to pay off debts?" She handed me a card. "There's $500,000 in here. It's more than enough for your adoptive mother's kidney transplant and all her follow-up care. If you agree to the marriage, I'll immediately start looking for a suitable kidney donor for her. Please, I'm begging you," she pleaded. In the end, I softened and reluctantly agreed. Meanwhile, Emily was forced to marry me because her mother, having just learned that her father had an illegitimate child, was terrified Emily would lose her inheritance. Our wedding was planned by others. Emily didn't even show up for the suit and ring fittings. It's laughable, but the only time I saw her was briefly on our wedding day. When the officiant asked if she would take me as her husband, I clearly saw a sarcastic smirk on her lips, as if she was mocking me, or maybe mocking herself. Before all this, our relationship had been decent enough. We were acquaintances who would nod when we ran into each other at student clubs. But now, I could clearly see the contempt and hatred in her eyes. She hated me for tearing her and Ethan apart, and she hated herself for being powerless to resist. That night, Emily drank a lot. When she came back, she dragged me to the bed and pushed me down forcefully. My first time was rushed and humiliating, nothing like the beautiful experience I had always imagined. "Ben, isn't this what you wanted? Are you satisfied now?" After venting her frustration, she pulled away without a second thought and didn't sleep with me. That night, I stared at the ceiling, wide awake until morning. The next morning, I saw a pile of cigarette butts on the balcony. Marriage, which was supposed to be a bond of love, had become nothing but disgust and resentment for us. That night, Emily got pregnant with Sophie. Actually, after she got pregnant, Emily and I did have a good period. She apologized to me, saying she had been too angry and wasn't thinking clearly when we first got married. Now, she realized I was also a victim of this business arrangement. I remember when Sophie was just born, she would fuss a lot at night. I didn't trust the nanny or the night nurse, so I always got up to take care of her myself. Emily, woken by the noise, would groggily get up and try to make me rest. She had to work during the day and couldn't rest well at night. Within a few days, she had dark circles under her eyes. When Sophie got a little older, the three of us went to an amusement park. She would always buy 2 ice creams, one for Sophie and one for me. Looking back, that period feels like a beautiful dream. Maybe my sense of self-worth was so low that I always felt a sense of dread hidden within the happiness, like a monstrous creature with a gaping mouth lurking beneath a calm, moonlit sea, waiting to devour that fleeting moment of peace. I never expected that my hidden fears would come true. When Sophie was 4, Ethan woke up. The day he woke up, Emily stayed on the balcony smoking until dawn, not sleeping a wink. My parents cried with joy. They fussed over him, and their entire lives began to revolve around him again. It was only then that I realized that in their eyes, I, their biological son, was far less important than the son they had raised with their own hands. At first, I didn't think much of it. I even wanted to get along with Ethan. He acted magnanimous, smiling and saying he wished Emily and me the best, and that Sophie was adorable. But I soon realized something was wrong. Ethan started showing up in our lives more and more often. Several times, I came home late from work to find him at our house, eating dinner with Emily and Sophie. Seeing me return, he would smile sheepishly. "I knew you were working late today and wouldn't have time to cook. I was worried the kids wouldn't like the nanny's food, so I came over. You don't mind, do you?" His cooking was heavy on oil and salt. Sophie loved it and would happily exclaim, "Uncle Ethan's cooking is so much better than Daddy's. Daddy's cooking is like pig slop. It's disgusting. Can you cook for me from now on, Uncle Ethan?" He would take Sophie to the amusement park with Emily, even though I had already said she had to finish her homework before she could go out to play. He would let Sophie eat candy and snacks, even though I had told her 100 times that she had to eat her meals properly first. I endured it time and time again, patiently trying to talk to Emily about it, but she always dismissed my concerns. "Ethan is her uncle, is he going to harm her? What's wrong with letting her have a little fun? I think you're just jealous of how well she gets along with Ethan." Emily and Ethan started spending more and more time together, and Sophie grew more and more fond of Ethan. Ethan could play the piano, spoke 4 languages, was handsome, and had elegant manners. I knew Sophie was ashamed of me as her father. Although I was the nominal heir to the Carter family, and I had made a lot of effort over the years to fit into high society, that innate aristocratic air is something you can't learn. When she played with other children from our circle, some of them would mock her, saying her dad was a country bumpkin. Sophie and I grew more and more distant. Emily and I started arguing. The love we once shared vanished like an imaginary bubble. I would become hysterical, and Emily would be annoyed and disgusted. Our already fragile relationship couldn't withstand being torn apart again and again, and it finally wore away completely. We started sleeping in separate rooms, no longer speaking to each other, like strangers living under the same roof. But I still hadn't thought about leaving. Because of Sophie, I always thought she needed a complete family. The decision to get a divorce was actually triggered by something small. A few days before Sophie's birthday, I was hospitalized for appendicitis. To celebrate her birthday, I checked out of the hospital 2 days early. But when I got home, I found my parents and Ethan were all there. Sophie was wearing a birthday hat, and colorful candles were stuck in the cake on the table. The others were singing happy birthday, and the festive atmosphere came to a halt the moment I opened the door. Emily's brow furrowed instinctively. "Why are you back?" I didn't know how to answer. For Sophie's birthday, I had checked out of the hospital 2 days early, my wound not yet fully healed. And now, returning to my own home, I had to explain myself. My mom stood up to smooth things over. "Ben's back. You must be tired. Sit down and have something to eat." I took out the gift I had for Sophie. Sophie had always wanted a pet. I had spent a long time choosing a beautiful blue and white Napoleon kitten and had just picked it up from the pet store. I carefully placed the kitten in front of Sophie. "Happy birthday, sweetie." But the surprised expression I had expected from Sophie never appeared. She just glanced at it and then said with some annoyance, "Uncle Ethan already got me a puppy. I don't want so many pets." I was stunned and only then noticed a carrier under the table. Inside was a Maltese puppy. "Oh, I see," I said, somewhat embarrassed. Ethan pursed his lips and said in a low voice, "Sairi, Ben." I didn't know you were also getting her a pet. If I had known you were giving her this, I would have gotten something else. I didn't actually mind, but the way he said it made it sound like I had somehow wronged him. Emily glanced at me and said coolly, "You don't need to apologize. It's Ben's fault for not saying anything beforehand. You didn't know." Sophie ignored me, stood up, blew out the candles on the cake, and closed her eyes to make a wish. My mom, seeing the awkward atmosphere, suggested, "It's Sophie's birthday today, and it's rare for our whole family to be here. Let's take a picture." I was about to go over and hold Sophie, but she suddenly pulled her hand away and moved closer to Ethan. "I don't want to be next to you. I want Uncle Ethan to hold me." She pulled away so forcefully that my hand stung. For a moment, I just stood there, not knowing how to react. Everyone found their places. Ethan stood in the middle, holding Sophie, with Emily beside him. My parents stood on either side. My mom was fumbling with the self-timer on her phone. Sophie, getting impatient, said to me, "Don't come over here. Just take the picture for us." No one objected. Under the lights, they looked like a real family, while an invisible line in the sand seemed to separate me from them, clearly telling me I wasn't part of their family. After a long moment, I walked over and pressed the shutter. The rest of the meal tasted like cardboard. I just couldn't force myself to smile. Ethan glanced at me, then suddenly put down his chopsticks, frowning. "I'm sorry, Ben. Should I not have come today?" A look of sadness crossed his face. "I just wanted to celebrate Sophie's birthday. Did I disturb you all? If you're unhappy, I won't come anymore. I don't want to make you unhappy." Before I could say anything, my mom's face filled with sympathy. "What are you talking about, dear? We're one family. Why talk like strangers?" I was just worried Ben was upset. "He doesn't seem very happy." Emily looked displeased. "If he's unhappy, it's because he's being petty. You came with good intentions to celebrate Sophie's birthday. What's there to be disturbed about?" Ethan bit his lower lip and stood up. "Maybe I should just go. You guys eat." He forced a bitter smile. "I'm not Mom and Dad's real son anyway. You all are the real family. I don't belong here. It's only right that Ben doesn't welcome me." My mom urgently grabbed his arm. "How can you say you don't belong here? I've always thought of you as my own son." She turned to me, her face full of reproach. "Ben, your brother was just being kind, coming to celebrate Sophie's birthday. Why are you making a scene on a happy day like this?" Emily also looked at me, her expression darkening. "Everything was fine. Why did you have to come back?" I wanted to speak, but Sophie interrupted me. She ran over and hugged Ethan's leg, shouting, "I don't want Uncle to go." Then she turned and glared at me. "I hate you, Daddy. If anyone should go, it's you." The child's eyes were black and white, filled with an innocent cruelty. "It's all your fault. You made Uncle sad. Why did you get better so fast, Daddy? If you had stayed sick, you wouldn't have had to come back." I stood there in the living room, stunned, looking at Sophie. This was the child I had poured all my love into. It felt like a hole had been torn in my heart, and the pain was so sharp I didn't know how to react. From beginning to end, I hadn't said a single word, but they all glared at me, protecting Ethan who stood behind them. After a long pause, I stood up, grabbed my still unpacked suitcase, and opened the door. "You don't have to go," I said softly as I walked past Ethan. "I'll go." We didn't hide the news of the divorce from our families. My mom called me right away, her voice tinged with complaint. "You're really getting a divorce over something so small? Marriage isn't a game. What about the child? Do you have the heart to let her grow up without a father?" I said flatly, "She has her favorite Uncle Ethan. I'm sure she'll be very happy. You're just so headstrong, always so extreme. Your father and I aren't like this. It must be those adoptive parents of yours who raised you this way." "Sigh," I said wearily. "Isn't that enough? Who are you still putting on an act for?" The truth is, ever since Ethan woke up, you've been trying to push him and Emily together. You just feel like Emily should have been his. Don't tell me you never thought about me divorcing Emily so Ethan could marry her? My mom choked for a second, her voice rising defensively. "How can you say that? You're both my sons. You're both my flesh and blood. How could I only care about him and not you? Suddenly, I didn't want to say another word. I'm not an idiot. Ever since my brother woke up, they had been constantly creating opportunities for him and Emily to be together. They still cared more about Ethan. They felt a good wife like Emily should be his. Don't worry, Emily will marry Ethan right after we divorce. The family business won't be affected. And I don't want a single thing from the Carter family. From now on, just pretend you never found me. What are you talking about, son? You? I hung up the phone. After a moment's thought, I blocked her number before she could call back. I quit my job and bought a plane ticket to Los Angeles. For years, my life had revolved around Emily and Sophie. Now that I was finally free, I suddenly wanted to travel and see the world. On the plane, I noticed a very young and beautiful girl sitting next to me. She was wearing a silk blue dress that made her skin look like snow. Her lips were red, her teeth were white, and her long hair fell softly over her shoulders, looking elegant yet natural. Is she a celebrity? I wondered to myself. As I passed her, our eyes met, and I gave her a polite smile. The flight was over 10 hours long. I reclined my seat and fell into a deep sleep until I was jolted awake by violent turbulence. We must have hit an air pocket. The plane was shaking so hard I could feel my butt lifting slightly off the seat. The flight attendants kept making announcements to reassure the passengers. I was a little scared but not terrified. Just then, I felt a touch. I turned around. The beautiful girl next to me was pale, her face drained of color. Her voice was weak. Sorry, but can I hold your hand? Seeing my hesitation, she added, I don't mean any harm. I'm just afraid of heights. Her voice started to tremble, and her beautiful, almond-shaped eyes had lost their light. Her red lips paled and quivered slightly. No man could refuse a request from a woman who looked like that. For the next 20 minutes, she really did just hold my hand without letting go. Her soft, delicate fingers gradually warmed up. She was still holding on even after the plane had stabilized. I shifted awkwardly and pointed toward the restroom. I need to use the restroom. Oh, sorry. She abruptly let go, her fair face flushing red all the way to her ear tips. She kept apologizing profusely. I just smiled and waved it off. With a face like hers, I was the one getting the better end of the deal. When we were disembarking, as I stood up to grab my bag, the girl thanked me again. She said, ruffling her hair and speaking in a low voice. That is, her ears started to turn red again. But the crowd was already moving, and I was pushed aside, unable to hear what she was saying. I could only smile and wave goodbye. That night, I was staying in Malibu. The sky was full of brilliant stars, without a single cloud. You could see countless diamond-like stars scattered across the sky, and the vast Milky Way flowed freely, completely unobstructed. The oppressive feelings I thought I could never let go of vanished in the face of this endless freedom and raw wilderness. The next day, the hotel arranged a car to take me to Runyon Canyon Park. When I got to the hotel entrance, the concierge told me there was another guest going with me. I looked in the car, and there was the beautiful girl from the plane, wearing a sun hat and waving excitedly at me. What a coincidence! On the way, I learned that this girl, Mia, was a travel blogger with over 3 million followers. She was very talkative and chatted with me non-stop the whole way. Thank you so much for the other day. When I was little, I was on a flight with really bad turbulence. A lot of people, including me, got hurt, so now I get scared every time I fly. Her face turned slightly red. If it weren't for you that day, I don't know what I would have done. Perhaps to repay me, Mia was very attentive all day, handing me water one moment and taking pictures for me the next. I don't usually like having my picture taken. When I used to go out with Emily, she always hated taking photos, and when she did, it was always half-hearted, and the pictures were terrible. Over time, I started to feel self-conscious, wondering if it was because I wasn't handsome enough that she always took such bad pictures of me. But Mia was very excited, guiding my poses and constantly encouraging me. Perfect. That profile could launch a career. Don't move. This angle is super handsome. I thought she was just being sweet, but when I looked at the photos on her camera, almost every single one was genuinely good. In the photos, I was looking down slightly, my eyes gentle and smiling. It was the photo of a lifetime. I was both surprised and delighted, and I found myself talking more. On the way back, I was asking Mia about photo filter settings, and she would patiently explain, helping me adjust the colors of each photo one by one. As I was leaning next to her adjusting the colors, Mia suddenly became serious and held a finger to her lips. Shoo! Startled, I whipped my head around. There were so many white doves behind us. I had never seen so many doves in my life. Mia yelped, instinctively leaning closer to me, her face pale. I pulled her behind me, and only after the doves had flown away did I whisper in her ear with a chuckle. It's okay, they're gone. Her warm breath brushed against my ear, and I realized she was pressed tightly against my chest. She looked so slim, but even through our clothes, I could feel a surprising softness. My face grew hot for no reason, and I quickly let go. The atmosphere on the way back was even warmer. We had dinner together, and Mia and I surprisingly had a lot in common. We liked the same kinds of movies, our playlists had many of the same songs, and she could even pick up on every joke I made. For the next few days, Mia and I did everything together. We took pictures of each other, went sightseeing, and ate together. By the time I realized it, I already had hundreds of photos of her in my album. One day, I was excitedly getting ready to go out and photograph a field of flowers when my phone suddenly rang. It was a call on social media from Emily. Her voice sounded weak on the phone. Ben, where are my painkillers? Emily suffered from headaches, a problem that had been on and off for years. They would flare up whenever she didn't get enough rest. When it was severe, she would be in so much pain that her face would turn pale. She would be covered in sweat, and she couldn't even speak. After many medications failed, I started searching online for similar cases and found an old traditional doctor through a netizen's recommendation. This doctor was in another province, thousands of miles away from our city. The prescription he gave always immediately relieved Emily's headaches, and she would be fine for a while. But there was one ingredient that he had to prepare himself, so I would fly to that province every few months to get a supply for her to keep at home. I remembered that when I left, the medicine was almost gone. In the second drawer from the left in the TV stand, there was some rustling on the other end of the line. It's gone. Then it's gone, I said flatly. There's a business card in the cabinet. You can go get it yourself. In all the years we were together, the house was always stocked with her medicine. I kept a reminder in my calendar for refills and never once forgot. I had never mentioned these things, and Emily probably never even noticed. There was a long silence on the other end. Just as I was about to hang up, Emily suddenly spoke. Perhaps it was the headache, but her voice lacked its usual assertiveness and carried a hint of barely perceptible vulnerability. Ben, there are still about 10 days left in the cooling-off period. You can think about it again. Sophie is still young. She needs a father. I didn't say anything. After a long pause, I said calmly, no. For her, maybe Ethan will be the better uncle she always wanted. Emily seemed to want to say something else, but I didn't want to hear it anymore and hung up the phone. I'm starting to understand something now. The reason my life was so painful before was because I was always forcing things. Forcing Emily's love. Forcing Sophie's love. Sophie is so much like her mother, in both looks and her consistent preferences. Now, I don't want to force anything anymore. When I looked up, I realized Mia had appeared in front of me at some point. She didn't ask any questions, just reminded me, it's time for our bonfire afternoon tea. Are you ready to go? I nodded. On the endless grassland, the hotel staff had cordoned off an area, lit a bonfire, and set up tables, chairs, and champagne. Mia and I sat together, drinking and watching the fiery sunset. After a few glasses of wine, she looked at the darkening sky and said, I heard you on the phone this afternoon. Was that your girlfriend? No, I said, looking down. My ex-wife. Well, not quite ex-wife yet, but she will be soon. You're getting divorced? Yeah. We're still in the cooling off period, but we're not getting back together. The sky grew darker, and it felt like the whole world was receding from me. Mia suddenly said, you must have been through a lot in your marriage. I was stunned. I didn't expect her to say that. Mia smiled. Even though we've only known each other for a few days, I feel like you're a very gentle person. The other day, when you were playing with those kids, you even made a point to share your candy with them. Your divorce, it's definitely not your fault. To be honest, I didn't cry when I decided to leave, and I didn't cry during the divorce. But when she said that, I suddenly felt a lump in my throat and had to look up to hide my emotion. Maybe it was the unfamiliar person and the unfamiliar environment that freed me from my inhibitions, or maybe it was the alcohol that made me want to talk. I blinked and said, because she and our daughter don't like me. I tried for a long time, but then I realized you can work hard at anything except for this. It seems like the harder I tried, the more I messed up. I never liked talking about my private affairs with others. The idea that you don't air your dirty laundry in public is deeply ingrained in our culture. But maybe it was Mia's gentle expression, or the fact that no one knew me in this foreign country. But I couldn't stop myself from telling her everything about me and Emily. By the end, I was drinking and crying. Did I do something wrong? My voice choked. I think I probably made a mistake from the very beginning. But what could I do? Mia moved closer and gently patted my back. It's not your fault. But this damn world is just like that. Sometimes you do your best and have no regrets, but the outcome isn't something we can control. Besides, this just means she wasn't the right person for you. Maybe the right one is still waiting for you in the future. The rain always comes without warning. We were still drinking when it suddenly started pouring. We were both soaked to the bone, holding our wine glasses. By the time the car took us back, it was already late. The alcohol was starting to wear off, and I began to feel awkward, making small talk. That bottle of champagne was really good. I was planning to finish it, what a shame. Mia didn't say anything. A little while later, there was a knock on my door. She was holding 2 bottles of champagne, smiling at me with her eyes curved into crescents. I just bought these from the hotel. Care for a drink? The rain poured outside, and lightning streaked across the dark sky. Mia handed me a glass filled with bubbling liquid. She had probably just taken a shower. Her hair was still wet and dripping, the water trickling down her collarbone and slowly dampening her clothes. Her silk nightgown clung to her body, revealing her beautiful curves. On a whim, I opened the door. Okay. That night, we leaned against the sofa, watching the torrential rain and the silver lightning that tore through the sky. I don't know what we talked about. Mostly it was me talking, and her listening quietly. As we drank more and more, I glanced at her, dissatisfied. Why aren't you saying anything? Are you even listening? She had had a lot to drink too. Her eyes were fixed on my lips, and she said nothing. Outside, the storm raged with thunder and lightning, the wind whipping the white curtains. Mia and I sat facing each other, staring blankly. I suddenly noticed her lower eyelashes were very long, and her eyes were like peeled lychees, the blacks and whites clear and watery. From a certain angle, she looked like a naive little animal, a mix of ingratiating obedience and a wild, predatory instinct hidden deep inside. I want to kiss you. Can I? She tilted her head, her eyes wide and hazy. The next second, I cupped her face and kissed her. To hell with the rules, to hell with being proper, to hell with the whole world. In that moment, I just wanted to follow my heart. Freedom, indulgence, whatever. I just wanted to forget everything for a moment and enjoy the present. A few seconds later, the tables turned. Mia gripped my wrist, and her lips, tasting of wine, took control. The sound of the rain grew louder as we swayed. Outside, it was pitch black, with only the occasional roar of thunder exploding in the sky. The whole world seemed to turn upside down, leaving only the two of us, clinging to each other, desperately seeking warmth. The 10-day trip ended quickly, and it was time for me to go back home. Mia was reluctant to let go, holding my hand. I'm going to Tanzania next. Do you want to come with me? I'll arrange everything. You just have to come with me. I looked into her sparkling eyes and shook my head with a smile. I'd had my share of madness and indulgence. It was time to pull myself together. Can I still find you when I get back? She asked cautiously. I didn't answer, just waved and turned to board the plane. To be honest, I really liked Mia. Who wouldn't like a girl like that? Young, beautiful, full of youthful energy. Being with her made me feel young again. but it was impossible between us. That occasional madness was just a beautiful, fleeting dream. I had already failed at love once. I didn't want to make the same mistake again. As soon as the plane landed, my phone was bombarded with notifications. On the other end of the line, Emily's voice was anxious and tired. Something's happened to Sophie. She's at Central Hospital. You need to come. I rushed to the hospital. Sophie's small body was lying on the bed, her face flushed, her eyes tightly shut. What happened? I snapped, looking at Emily. I had given up custody of Sophie, but she was still my daughter. Seeing her like this still hurt my heart. Emily's brow was furrowed, and for once, a guilty look mixed with anger was visible on her face. A few days ago, she paused. I was busy with a project at work, so I asked Ethan to look after Sophie. She rubbed her temples. He said he would take good care of her, but when Sophie got sick, he went to a couture fashion show. I didn't know. The child was at home alone with a high fever. Thank God the nanny found her. I looked at her coldly. Didn't you say Ethan would take good care of her? Emily fell silent. The door was suddenly pushed open, and Ethan, dressed in a designer suit, rushed in. He glanced at Sophie, his face turned pale, and he rushed to Emily to explain anxiously. Emily, listen to me. I really didn't know Sophie was sick. If I had known, I wouldn't have gone. I came back as soon as I heard the news. Emily looked at him and asked, You've been explaining yourself since you walked in, but you haven't once asked how Sophie is doing. Ethan was speechless. Emily sneered. The child woke up for a few minutes just now. She said she told you she felt sick, but you lied and said you were going to buy her a cake, and then you left. Ethan, you're such a two-faced person. Ethan raised his voice. No, she's just a child making things up. She's lying, Just then, a weak voice spoke up. Sophie opened her eyes and said softly, I'm not lying. I told you I felt sick. You asked if I want a cake, said you were going out to buy me some, and then you never came back. Her expression was cold, completely devoid of the attachment she used to have for Ethan. I know you want my mom to have a baby with you. You think I'm a stumbling block. You want me to die, don't you? I was stunned. In my memory, Sophie was very dependent on Ethan. I had never seen her speak to him in such a cold tone. Ethan, caught in his lie, blushed and sat down, trying to take Sophie's hand to soothe her. What nonsense is this child talking about? Uncle really didn't mean to. Uncle didn't know you were so sick. You like cake, right? I'll go buy you some right now, the biggest and best one. Sophie just pulled her hand away and turned her head to the side. I went out to ask the doctor about Sophie's condition and ran into our family's nanny at the door. The nanny and I had always gotten along well, and we had developed a bond over the years. She sighed when she saw me. Sir, the little miss is actually quite pitiful. She's young and doesn't know any better. When people spoil her with food and fun, she thinks they're good people. She's so young. How would she know that only her real mother would truly be good to her? What happened? Why are they suddenly like this? The nanny glanced at the hospital room and lowered her voice. I'm not trying to speak ill of Mr. Ethan, but he was only nice to the little miss before to please the madam. Ever since he pushed you out, he's become more and more dismissive of her. Sometimes when the little miss goes to him, he doesn't even give her a pleasant look and just shoos her away. The other day, I heard him tell the madam he wanted a biological child. Sir, the madam is also confused. How can she not understand that no man will ever truly be good to a child from a previous relationship? Once he has his own child, will there still be a place for the little miss in this family? I really suspect he intentionally left the little miss at home this time. He just thinks that once he has his own child, the little miss will be a stumbling block and he wants to. She stopped abruptly, glanced at my face, and said in a low voice, Maybe I'm overthinking it. Back in the room, Sophie was on an 4-drip. Fortunately, her fever had subsided. The doctor said she was brought in just in time and there was nothing serious. I sat for a while and was about to leave when Sophie suddenly called out to me. She was lying alone in bed, her small body covered by a white blanket, looking very pitiful. Daddy! She reached out to me, her eyes wet, like an abandoned puppy. Can you stay with me for a little while? I miss you so much. Honestly, I did feel sorry for her. I shouldn't hold a grudge against such a young child. After all, she is my own flesh and blood. But for some reason, looking at her like this, I was surprised to find that I didn't feel any sympathy at all. I looked at her, and my mind involuntarily went back to the image of her hugging Ethan and saying I was the one who should leave. You should get some rest. I'm leaving now. I didn't know what to say, so I stood up to leave. Sophie stared at me. Her lips moved as if she wanted to say something else, but tears suddenly streamed down her face. Emily followed me out and called after me. She looked tired. Ben, I've been thinking about what happened before. I went too far. You know, Ethan and I were always together, and then you suddenly appeared. I couldn't adjust that quickly. But I've thought it through now. We're married, we have Sophie, and those few years were actually quite happy. The child also needs a complete family. Come back. Okay? I looked at her and suddenly found it a bit ridiculous. When I was desperately trying to hold our family together, she scoffed at me. Now that I was finally completely disappointed and had left, she was trying to win me back. Is human nature really that perverse? Or did she only realize my value after I left, thinking her life would be more comfortable with me around? I said nothing and turned to leave. That evening, I was working on a design when there was a sudden knock on the door. I cautiously approached the door. Who is it? A female voice came from outside. Your neighbor. I just moved in. Thought I'd introduce myself. I froze, then yanked the door open. Mia was standing there in a white t-shirt and jeans, her long hair tied up in a neat ponytail. Her amber eyes were full of laughter. She held up a tray. I baked some cupcakes. Want some? I was stunned. What are you doing here? I hadn't contacted her since I got back from Africa. She had sent me a lot of messages, but I hadn't replied. I felt that there was no future for us, and it was best to cut our losses early to avoid getting too attached. Mia shot me a sideways glance, a mix of complaint and flirtation. You're so cruel. I sent you so many messages, and you didn't reply to a single one. Was I just a fling to you? I still hadn't quite recovered. Weren't you in Tanzania? Humph, after being used and thrown away, what mood do I have to go to Tanzania? After you left, I immediately bought a ticket for the next flight back. And just to be clear, I didn't stalk you. You posted on your social feed that you live in this complex. I asked the property management and found out where you lived. Your neighbor didn't want to sell at first, but I offered 20% above market price, and she immediately agreed. She really made herself at home, walking into the apartment as she spoke and even opening the shoe cabinet herself. When she saw there were no women's slippers, a smile tugged at her lips, which she quickly suppressed. My place isn't renovated yet, so you have to let me stay with you for a few days. If you don't, I'll have to live on the streets. She chattered on, plopped down on the sofa, and said naturally, what are you standing there for? Sit down. Oh wait, this is my house, right? I said helplessly. Why are you just making yourself at home? Who said you could stay? Mia suddenly stood up, her face full of anger. Ben, what is this? Are you one of those jerks who sleeps with a girl and then ghosts her? I'm only 22, and that was my first time, you know? You took my first time and now you want to just walk away. Do you know how important a girl's first time is? You took my first time. How am I supposed to get married now? What other man will want me? Am I going to be alone for the rest of my life? Wait, She got more and more worked up, and I got dizzy trying to follow her. I instinctively tried to explain that's not what I meant. Her anger flared even more. Then what do you mean? I don't care. If you don't want me, I'll jump off your balcony. Half an hour later, Mia was sitting on the sofa with her arms crossed, pouting. I handed her a glass of water, saying cautiously, don't be mad. Have some water. Your throat must be dry after all that talking. Humph. She turned her head away and said nothing. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. All right, stop fooling around. I agree, you can stay. I knew she was bluffing, but being accused by a face like that, I actually felt a little guilty. And from experience, I had a feeling that what Mia said was probably true. It was probably her first time. Mia's expression finally softened a little. She glanced at me sideways. You know what's good for you. And just like that, Mia and I began our muddled cohabitation. We weren't exactly boyfriend and girlfriend, we hadn't made it official. But we did everything a couple would do. Sometimes I would tell myself that as a living partner, Mia was pretty great. She might look delicate, but she didn't have a princess attitude. She was proactive and loved to clean. She was also a great cook. Most importantly, she didn't have any of those bad habits some girls have. She would wash her clothes immediately after taking them off, not just throw them everywhere. The toilet was always spotless, and she even cleaned up her own hair from the bathroom floor every day. I had to admit, since she came into my life, I finally understood what a home felt like. Having such a skilled and thoughtful partner in the house made every day feel brighter. With her company, I hardly felt the pain of the divorce at all. Every evening after dinner, we would go for a walk together. Then she would work on her computer for a while, and we would pick a movie to watch together, cuddled up on the sofa. The only annoying thing was that we had different tastes in movies, so we would fight over the remote for half an hour every day. She would always complain, "Why do you get to choose just because you're the man? Let's compete fairly. Rock, paper, scissors." After a few days of fighting, we made a rule. Horror movies on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays, and romance movies on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. I wanted to watch horror movies, she wanted to watch romance movies. I never thought we would live together for so long. By my birthday, we had been together for over 2 months. I didn't usually celebrate my birthday because neither my family nor Emily ever remembered it. My adoptive mother, the only one who remembered my birthday, passed away last year, so sometimes even I would forget. So when I came home to a table full of food and a cake, I instinctively asked, "What's the occasion? Why such a big meal?" Mia walked over and tapped my head. "You don't even remember your own birthday." I thought for a moment and then realized it was my birthday. Mia, on the other hand, was very excited. Her hair was clearly styled with care, every strand exuding a festive vibe. Her silk dress perfectly accentuated her slender figure, and her black high heels made her legs look long and straight. She was even wearing a strawberry-patterned apron, looking every bit the perfect, sophisticated wife. I was a little speechless, my heart softening and feeling a little bittersweet. "Thank you, but you didn't have to go to all this trouble. I never used to celebrate my birthday. You didn't before, but from now on, you'll celebrate with me. Birthdays are important. How can you not celebrate?" She pulled out a chair. "Please sit. I've brought out my game today. So far, you're the only one who's tasted it. Aren't you honored?" I couldn't help but smile. To be honest, it felt good to be remembered and valued. We had a very happy dinner. Mia's cooking was as good as she claimed. In the days I'd been with her, I hadn't cooked once. She was spoiling me to the point where I could barely take care of myself. Make a wish. After dinner, she put candles on the cake, raised her eyebrows at me, her eyes sparkling. In the candlelight, her pupils reflected the flames in a strange color. I looked into her eyes and, on a whim, a wish popped into my head. I wish I could celebrate my birthday with her like this every year from now on. When I opened my eyes again, I suddenly found Mia had moved closer to me. Up close, the impact of her beauty was on another level. Her eyes were like a siren's, deep and mesmerizing, as if they could pull you in at any moment. "What did you wish for?" She tilted her head slightly. I blushed and was too embarrassed to say. Mia reached out and caressed my face, her red lips parting. "Was it about me? You were looking at me the whole time. How would you know I was looking at you if you weren't looking at me?" I couldn't help but retort. "You're right," Mia suddenly smiled. "I was looking at you. I've been looking at you this whole time. Are you just now realizing it?" The living room light seemed to be faulty and flickered suddenly. But neither of us spoke. A moment later, a cool kiss landed on my lips. I didn't resist. I closed my eyes and responded. My actions seemed to unleash all of Mia's pent-up feelings. She completely let go, grabbing the back of my neck and pulling me towards her, her force becoming uncontrollably aggressive. For a moment, my breath was stolen, and my mind went blank with suffocation. I don't know how much time passed. Just as my legs were getting so weak I was about to collapse into her arms, the doorbell suddenly rang. Mia ignored it, but the doorbell rang again, insistently. She pulled away, panting, and cursed under her breath as she went to open the door. Did the fruit I ordered arrive already? They said tomorrow. Her hand paused on the doorknob. She came face to face with Emily, who was standing outside. Emily was holding a cake. Her eyes darted between my swollen lips and Mia, and her face darkened. She narrowed her eyes at Mia. Who are you? Mia looked her up and down, and when she saw the cake in her hand, she smiled. The ex-wife. Pleasure. I'm Ben's current. Emily stared at me for a long time. Ben, how long has it been since our divorce? You've already found someone new? Her tone was filled with rage and disbelief. I smirked. Emily, don't act like I cheated on you. You were messing around with Ethan before we were even divorced. What right do you have to say anything to me? Emily was speechless. After a long pause, she closed her eyes, trying to suppress her anger. I came to celebrate your birthday. She didn't look at Mia anymore, as if she didn't exist. Ben, we were together for so many years, and Sophie is so big now. The feelings we had can't be compared to a few months with someone else. I admit I hurt you with the whole Ethan situation. I can make it up to you. I don't even mind that you were with her. Let's get back together. I almost laughed out loud. I grabbed Mia's hand as she was about to step forward and looked at Emily sincerely. Why do you want to get back with me? Is it because Sophie needs a father? Or because you realized life without me isn't as good as you thought? Emily was silent for a moment, then said in a low voice, neither. It's because I've realized these past few days that I can't let you go. I come home, and the house is empty. Your things are still there, but you're not. I feel. A look of confusion crossed her face. I feel awful. Really? I clenched my fists, a sudden wave of anger washing over me. Emily, do you have any idea how I felt when you were out all night with Ethan? What gives you the right to hurt me like that and then just waltz back in and say, let's get back together? Who the hell do you think you are? My voice rose. My biggest regret in this fucking life is that I ever loved you. Now, just looking at you makes me sick. Get out. And don't ever show your face in front of me again. Emily was stunned, a flicker of hurt in her eyes. She said anxiously, I know I hurt you. I know I was a real piece of work before. I'll really make it up to you in the future. I'll never. Mia squeezed in front of her and said coldly, my boyfriend told you to get lost. Can't you understand plain English? Mia usually liked to act cute around me, which made me forget that she was also a woman with a strong presence. Standing next to Emily, her aura was just as powerful. I pulled Mia back and stood beside her. Emily, I have someone new now. Please stop bothering me. Emily was stunned, then gave me a long, deep look. Her eyes were a little red. Fine, Ben. Don't worry, I won't bother you again. Then she abruptly turned and strode away. As summer ended, Mia started to feel nauseous for no reason. She counted the days and bought a pregnancy test with a trembling hand. When the two bright lines appeared, we were both stunned, sitting frozen on the sofa, not knowing how to react. We had used protection every time, except for that one time we were drunk and forgot. But that was supposed to be a safe day. I was the first to snap out of it. Then I suddenly hugged her and started laughing like an idiot. I had never been this happy. I jumped up and paced back and forth in front of the sofa like a headless fly, muttering to myself, there's still time to get a wedding dress custom made. I know a place in France that does amazing handmade dresses. Where should we have the wedding? How many people should we invite? Honey, how many people from your family can come? No, we need to go for a prenatal checkup first. I remember we were drinking that night. The checkup came back fine. I was overjoyed. Seeing me like this, Mia somehow felt a sense of peace. Maybe this child would really be different from Sophie. He was a child born of love, not a result of resentment. I'm not a fool. I could feel Mia's love for me, and I knew how I felt about her. Maybe this was God giving me a chance to find happiness again. I was about to speak when my phone suddenly rang. Hello, this is the Austin Police Department. Are you Sophie Carter's father? I instinctively thought it was a scam, but his next words sent a chill down my spine. Sophie has been kidnapped. Please come to the Orion Tower Building D immediately. When I arrived at the Orion Tower, I was stunned. On the rooftop, Emily was confronting Ethan. Ethan's hair was disheveled, his usual refined appearance gone. His eyes were bloodshot, and he looked completely unhinged. He was holding Sophie hostage, a knife pressed to her neck. His voice was shrill and hoarse. "Get out of my way. I'm going to kill this little bastard today." My mom had nearly collapsed nearby, her eyes swollen from crying, her hand over her mouth as she sobbed. "How did it come to this? How did it come to this? What the hell happened?" I grabbed her by the shirt. Why did he suddenly want to kill Sophie? My mom was crying too hard to speak clearly. From her broken narrative, I finally pieced together what happened. After I left, Ethan no longer needed to please Sophie to get rid of me. He simply kicked her to the curb, his attitude toward her worsening. He then tried to get Emily to have a child with him to inherit the Lowell family fortune. He eagerly told Emily his plan, trying to force her into marriage, but Emily refused to marry him and told him to sort out his own affairs. They had a huge fight. Ethan asked her if she still had feelings for me, calling me a fool and our daughter an ungrateful brat. Unfortunately, Sophie, who was eavesdropping nearby, heard everything. Children are sensitive. She had already sensed Ethan's changing attitude. On top of that, relatives had been subtly and not so subtly pitying her for her father leaving, filling her head with ideas that a stepfather would never be good to her, and that once Ethan had his own son, there would be no place for her in the family. But I didn't have time to sort all that out. No matter what, Sophie was my daughter. I couldn't just stand by and watch her die. Just as my mind was racing and I was about to step forward, Emily, who was standing to the side, said coldly, "Ethan, let the child go, or I won't let you off easy." Ethan screamed, almost breaking down. "Emily, is this little brat the only one who's your daughter? How can you be so cold-blooded?" Emily narrowed her eyes. "Ben was always the rightful Carter heir. You're the one who stole his life. Otherwise, I would have been with him from the start." "Bullshit." Ethan's hand trembled. "It's mine, it's all mine." The trembling knife cut Sophie's neck. She burst into tears, terrified, reaching for me. "Daddy, save me." In that split second, Emily took advantage of Ethan's distraction and rushed forward. Ethan was caught off guard. Emily yanked Sophie away and pushed her aside. But just as Emily was about to subdue him, he found a sudden burst of strength, crazily raising the knife and lunging at Emily. "If you won't let me go, then we'll die together." Emily never expected him to go this berserk, trying to take them both down with him. The next second, all that was left in her chest was the hilt of the dagger. Large blossoms of blood bloomed on her white pantsuit. Ethan was quickly taken away by the police who rushed in. I waited outside the operating room for a long time until the doctor finally came out. He frowned. The dagger missed her heart by less than a centimeter. "She's not out of danger yet. We'll need to transfer her to the ICU for further observation." Sophie was standing nearby, her face pale. She hadn't said a word since she was rescued, just stood there in a daze, as if she was in shock. Mia didn't know what to say either, just held my hand tightly. I patted her hand, then walked over to Sophie, knelt down, and hugged her. Sophie was trembling all over. After a long silence, she suddenly threw her arms around me and burst into tears. "Daddy, I was so scared. Daddy, please come back. I really know I was wrong. I shouldn't have said those things to you. I really regret it. Daddy, I miss you so much." She was sobbing too hard to speak. I held her and sighed softly. 3 days later, I heard that Emily was out of danger. She was the only heir of her generation in the Lowell family. Because of this incident, the Lowells completely broke ties with the Carters, canceling all their partnerships. The Carters' capital chain broke, and they had to rush to get a loan from the bank. But the Lowells had already spoken to the banks. Everyone knew the Lowell stance and took the opportunity to suppress the Carter family, buying up their assets at low prices. My dad, in a desperate attempt to save his assets, trusted a so-called investor from the UK and ended up being scammed out of everything. The company had to declare bankruptcy. My mom called me again later, I heard that all their properties and vehicles had been mortgaged, their funds frozen, and they were now reduced to renting a place to live. My mom was crying her eyes out. At my age, I have to work as a cleaner. I worked for 8 hours yesterday, and today my back hurts so much I can't move. Son, what are your father and I supposed to do? I knew she wanted me to help her. She had given birth to me, but she had never raised me. As for my adoptive mother's medical expenses, I had paid that price by marrying Emily to secure the Lowell family's protection. I didn't owe her anything. I hung up the phone without saying a word. A while later, Mia's baby bump started to show. I had been busy planning the wedding, but it was a lot of work, and she didn't have the energy for it lately. So we agreed to get legally married first and have the wedding ceremony after the baby was born. That evening, Mia and I were walking home hand in hand when we suddenly saw Emily and Sophie downstairs. She had lost a lot of weight since I last saw her. Probably because of her injury, the pantsuit that once fit her perfectly now hung loosely on her frame. Her collarbones stuck out, and her complexion was pale. Mia glanced at me, her tone a little sarcastic. "Do you need me to step away for a minute?" I leaned down and kissed her. "Just 5 minutes, I promise." Emily turned her head away. Mia crossed her arms. "Fine. I'll be watching you from the balcony. If you take more than 5 minutes, I'm gonna make a scene." With that, she shot Emily a fierce glare, huffed, and went upstairs. Emily and I stood there in silence for a moment before she spoke first. "How have you been?" Perhaps because of everything that had happened, the confident, superior air she once had was gone, replaced by a sort of awkwardness and nervousness. I nodded. "I'm good. How about you?" Emily gave a bitter smile. "What do you think? Ever since you left, I feel like I've been completely hollowed out. I haven't had a proper night's sleep in ages. What's the point?" I sighed. "Yeah, what's the point?" Emily's voice was hoarse. "I once had everything, and I messed it all up." She looked up, her eyes glistening with tears, her expression pleading. "Ben, we had good times too. I only now realize how much I love you. It wasn't you who couldn't live without me, it was always me who couldn't live without you. It's just a shame I had to lose you to see it clearly. I know it's shameless of me to say this, but can you give me another chance? We still have a child between us. Can you think about the child? Can you really bear to leave her?" I touched Mia's slightly rounded belly and cut her off. "But Emily, I have a new child on the way." Emily was stunned. "She's pregnant?" Her gaze slowly moved up, and she said bitterly, "Is it his?" I nodded. "Yeah. We don't know if it's a boy or a girl yet, but I'll love it either way. Emily, I'm starting a new life. You should look forward to." Before she could speak, Sophie burst into tears. "I don't want Daddy to have another baby. If Daddy has another baby, does that mean he won't want me anymore? You said you loved me the most, Sophie. You said you loved me the most, Daddy." Sophie tried to run to me but was pulled back by Emily. Her voice seemed to tremble slightly, but she quickly steadied it. "Ben." She wanted to say more, but I glanced at my phone and smiled apologetically. "Sorry, I have to go up. My girl will get jealous otherwise." With that, I turned and left. The gaze from behind me lingered for a long time, but I never looked back. 5 months later, Mia gave birth to a lovely baby boy. His eyes and face were like mine, but his nose and mouth were like hers. He was fair and tender, with bright, watery eyes, absolutely adorable. He was very attached to me and would cry if he couldn't see me. Mia adored the child and named him Ian Carter. 6 months later, we had our wedding in Sri Lanka. On the wedding day, I received a red envelope. Inside was a check with a long string of zeros after the amount. There was no signature, only a few words. "Wishing you a lifetime of happiness." I turned to look into the distance. The figure of a woman in a pantsuit flashed by and disappeared behind a tree. "What's wrong?" Mia came over and linked her arm with mine. I shook my head. "Nothing. Let's go, the reception is about to start." She took my arm and we walked away. The sun shone brightly behind us, under a clear, vast sky.